Look at this. This dish, absolutely heavenly. Its name is in Italian is translated dances on the tongue. This dish is called Veal Saltimbocca, and I tell you what, once you've tried it, you're going to be hung on it for life, okay? So, simple, wonderful veal dish that may just change your opinion about Italian cooking and veal both altogether. Give this recipe a try and be blown away like most people are. Hello, welcome back to Texas Cooking. Today I have the honor of teaching you how to make one of my favorite dishes. This is a dish called Veal Saltimbocca. Here we have veal. This is prosciutto ham. This is some cheese. This is grana padano cheese. I'm going to use just a little of this. This is not a common ingredient in this. However, it does work in it. Also a little salt. There's lemon juice, sage, some white wine. A Pinot Grigio works really good for this. You can use a Chardonnay, anything that's a nice dry white wine for you. And also some olive oil and butter. Now the first thing we're going to do is to assemble these beautiful little cutlets with all of their other ingredients. And what we're going to do is to produce this in a style that's known as Roman style. There's two different ways of making a saltimbocca, and one is where it is served open, open face sort of, you might say, with the prosciutto exposed and you cook the prosciutto, and the other is where the prosciutto is rolled up or closed inside of it, and that's the Roman style, and that is what we're going to be doing here today. That's my favorite way of doing it. So I tell you what, watch this video. You're going to be really surprised at what you find out on this. It's going to be superb. What we're going to do here is going to be a dish that will really lighten up your world. The name Saltimbocca literally means dances on the tongue in Italian. So let's make this wonderful dish. Next we'll get down to our assembly. Okay, let's go ahead and assemble these lovely little cutlets. Now, as I frequently tell people, I recommend that you have some gloves setting aside to go ahead and slip into, and that way when you're working with meats and things like that, it's a little bit cleaner. Okay, so I have here some of those nice little gloves that I like to use. We'll set those aside there. And the first thing I'm going to do is to season our cutlets. So let's put a little bit of salt down on these. There we are. Now, when I'm using salt and I'm cooking like this, I like to use a good tasting salt, something that's real pure, so I use a sea salt. I usually go out and purchase like kosher salt. That's a sea salt, and it does give a better flavor than the salts that are mined, okay? So I recommend that. Give it a try. I think you'll be surprised at how good it is. Now, our salt is on there. Generally, when you're making this particular dish, you would use some fresh sage, and if you use the whole leaf of fresh sage, it just overwhelms the flavor of the dish, okay? It just overpowers everything. I don't recommend you use a whole leaf, but to take a leaf and slice it lengthwise and use some slivers of it, just 2 or 3 of the narrow slivers. This time we're going to use a sage powder. Alright, this works really well, and it's a good way for you to control how much sage flavor is down into that cutlet, because I don't like mine to be overwhelmed with sage. There we go. Now, we've got our basic seasoning on there. The grana padano cheese, I went ahead and grated some up. You might want to do that before you get started on this. And just put a little bit down on each of the cutlets. They don't have to be drowning in it, okay? It doesn't take a lot of this cheese to go a long way. And as I said, this is not an item that's normally done on a saltimbocca. However, I have found that it really picks up the flavor, and maybe Italian chefs ought to look into doing this. There we go. Let's get that cheese out of our way. Now, it's come time for us to go ahead and start working these a little bit. Let's take our ham and gently peel it. Now sometimes prosciutto, it's like glue. It just loves to stick to itself. So if it does that a little bit, don't worry. Go ahead and just peel it up. I'm going to fold some of this in half. we're going to place it right down on top of these cutlets, just like so. Okay? And you don't have to be pretty about this. The ham is going to be folded up inside of it. Generally, when I go out and purchase prosciutto, I like to just buy it by the pound. And I have a shop here in town, here in Dallas. They sell this by the pound at a very good price. If you go to a shop and they're charging you more than $20 a pound on prosciutto, then you need to start looking around a little bit, okay? There we go. And I have them slice this for me, and they do it just absolutely paper thin, which is great for sandwiches, for cooking, all kinds of stuff. Now, I like a good strong prosciutto flavor on my saltimbocca, so I'm going to get plenty on there. Just a little more. Go right there. Now I can take this prosciutto and get it out of my way, and we're going to finish making our saltimbocca logs. This is where you want to go ahead and glove up. As I say, this is just a little bit neater. And what's nice about this is you don't have to wash your hands after you've produced these. You can just move right into the next step. Pull the gloves off and head right on into the next thing that you're going to do. I'm going to use some toothpicks to hold these together after I fold them. Now all I want to do is to simply take that veal cutlet and fold it in half. A lot of times the Roman style is done where you roll it. The problem is if there's veal in the center of the roll, it takes a little longer for it to cook. And by that point, the veal on the outside of the roll is overcooked. Now I have taken my toothpick and pushed it through at an angle so that it comes right out the other side, and all I'm trying to do is just to keep it closed while I'm cooking it. After that, it'll hold itself together. So let's go ahead and do all of these. Sometimes when you get a veal cutlet, depending on how they come, they might be a little bit torn up or broken. Don't worry about that. Go ahead and just fold it and work with it. Like this one, it was really broken. My prosciutto up inside. Now the reason we fold these, that prosciutto is extremely delicate, and if I go to frying, which is how we cook this, if I go to frying the prosciutto on one side, it's going to dry it out. So I don't like to do this open faced. I like to do it closed as I'm showing you. There we are. Now, our cutlets are made. All I need to do is transfer these into a hot skillet so we can get them cooked up. Okay, we're here at our stove now. Before we go ahead and fry these up, there are two different ways that you can cook this. The first way is just to go ahead and place it in your hot oil and cook it like that. And it produces a really nice fond in the bottom of the pan, and that's that caramelized meat and the juices that stick to the bottom of the pan and form sort of a dark layer. That's sort of like concentrated flavor, and it really lends to the sauce a great deal. The other way of doing this is to flour the cutlets, and that's what we're going to do this time. Is we're going to flour them just a little bit. And what I'm going to do, let's go ahead and start the burner. And I need to put in about 3 to 4 tablespoons of oil. Okay, there we go. Now I'm going to add to that some butter. I'm going to use about 2 tablespoons of butter. And that's about a 1/2 inch thick cut is a tablespoon. If you're not sure when you're cutting your butter, if you'll look at the outside of the package, it is marked with the increments of how to cut butter in tablespoons or cups or however that you need. So it tells you just how to do that. Now while this is heating, let's go ahead and take some of our cutlets, place them right down in the flour. I want to give it a bit of a shake, and what that does is it helps to pull some of the flour over the top. I can take these out and I'm going to set them aside on a cooling rack. Let me pull one of those down. There we go. Put that on the cooling rack. Now if I get a little butter in the oil, don't worry about that. That's actually going to, or excuse me, a little flour in the oil, don't worry about that. That's actually going to lend to the quality of this dish some, because it allows the sauce to thicken up some. I'll set that aside. We'll go ahead and finish flouring the rest of these. Put it in there and give it a bit of a shake. Here we are. It's floured and ready to cook. Now this flour, like I said, as you're cooking it, it provides a coating on this that allows your sauce to stick to it. And that's the reason I'm doing this. There we go. Knocked off any excess. Now, our butter is making a little noise. There we go. It's foaming nicely. So let's go ahead and take those cutlets and start cooking them. And I want to cook these over about a medium-high flame. Be careful not to overcook. It is easy to overcook these cutlets. They're very delicate. They cook in only a few minutes. The smell of this is just heavenly. I am just now reducing the heat to a medium-high flame. What I was doing just then was knocking the excess flour off of my tongs. Now, the white wine, you want to go ahead and have that already opened up. And you want to have on your lemon juice about 1 to 2 tablespoons of lemon juice. Now, what we're going to do here is to make a simple wine and butter sauce. And this is very common in Italian cooking. You'll notice our butter is getting a little bit brown in there. That's also going to influence the flavor. It's going to give it something of a nutty flavor. You notice I don't turn them over. I keep them down on one side, and I'm going to do that until they are fully cooked on that side. Don't be in a rush to turn this over, and only turn it one time. This is something that you need to get in the habit of right now as you're learning to cook, or if you're an intermediate cook, get into the habit. When you turn a steak, when you're cooking a hamburger, put it down on one side and then turn it one time. Turn it halfway through its cooking. If you do turn your meat multiple times, what you're going to discover is that you're not going to get good browning and that the meat's going to overcook and be dry. And that will be rather unpleasant. Now I'm going to go ahead and pull out a bowl to put those in as soon as they are finished cooking. Look at that beautiful color on that. Absolutely beautiful looking. Now, once again, this is a cook-along video. If I get ahead of you, feel free to stop. But this way you get to see how quick this is, how easy it is, because we're doing this straight through. tell you what, the smell that's coming up off of this is just absolutely heavenly. If you've never had veal before, well then you're in for a double treat. Now, how to test if your meat is finished? The best way, in your professional chef, what you're going to see them do the most, is they're going to do what they call a feel test, or a density test, where they push on it just like this. And how firm that meat is will depend on how well cooked it is. And the neat way to do this is this soft area in between your first finger and your thumb, right up in here. If you hold your hand relaxed and squeeze that, that is a medium rare. Okay? And if you close your hand but not tighten it, that's a medium. If you tighten it just slightly but not hard, that's medium well. And then tighten it down to a fist, and that's well done. Okay? It's similar on most meats. Okay? So this is just a general way of knowing, and it's a great way of understanding what you're cooking up. There we go. Get that beautiful golden color on the second side. And we'll cook a little more. Let it come out. Now, one of the most important things that I can teach on any of my cooking shows is how to make sauces. Sauces are really what makes one meat dish special from another meat dish. If it's not for sauces, then, well, it's the same bland old thing every time. It's the sauce that perks things up. Okay. Put that out. Put those aside. Now, to start our sauce, the first thing we want to do, right in with that blender. I'm going to pour in some of this white wine. And that is what's called deglazing the pan. You see, we pulled all of that that's in the bottom up into this sauce. Put a little more wine in there. There we go. Now, something you want to have available is your butter. And I'm going to add just a little bit more butter to this as it's heating. And if you were in the French world, this particular sauce, what we are doing right here by heating white wine and then whisking in chilled butter, that's called making a beurre blanc. Okay? Now, beurre blanc is pretty much the simplest of sauces, yet it is absolutely delightful in its flavors. Now, when you're cooking, don't be afraid to go ahead and taste what you're cooking. Taste test it. That way, if you need to adjust the flavors in one way or the other, you can do that. Oh my goodness. That is heavenly. The wine needs to cook down just a little bit more, but it is absolutely wonderful. What I'm going to do is whisk in just a little bit more butter. See how that butter combines with the wine real well? It doesn't separate on you. And then also having that flour in this is going to help this to thicken up just a little bit quicker. What I'm going to want to do is to cook all of the alcohol out of it. And then it's going to be ready to plate up. Again, we're going to do another taste test. Excellent. I can taste the wine is changing on me. It's cooking down just the way it should. Now, what I'm doing here is allowing this to reduce. When you bring out a lot of extra steam and it makes the liquid a little thicker, that's what you're doing. That's called reducing it. Keep a close eye on it as you do this. See on the bottom there? Got some of that flour that's settling down, and it's thickening on the bottom but not on the top. There we are. Alright, I'm turning that burner off. There we go. It's thick, but still a little bit liquidy. Okay? That's just perfect right there. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to transfer a couple of my cutlets to a fresh bowl. We'll do that one. And we'll do this one. Now, I can pull that toothpick out. Usually they come out clean and easy. There we go. I'm going to take this one out. Alright. Now to serve our saltimbocca, when you want to present this, you might want to put it with a side of spaghetti or some other form of pasta that has had olive oil and garlic put in it. I'm just going to take my sauce, give it a bit of a toss there, and we're going to pour that right over them. There we go. There you have it. Veal Saltimbocca. Folks, I hope you enjoy this as much as I do, because I tell you what, the name dances on the tongue. I think it doesn't do it justice, because it's so much better than that.